Hi Virgo, how are you? It's me, LB. Welcome to your end of October reading. This month we are going to use the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Oracle for you and this teeny tiny little tarot deck that I got at a Renaissance festival a few weeks ago. I was using the Wild Unknown Archetype Oracle, Virgo, but it felt like too heavy or too intense for you. And when I sit in your energy, actually, you have the butterfly at the bottom of the deck. When I sit in your energy, there's actually a character from a movie who comes to mind. We are in the midst of spooky season, so if you haven't watched The Witches of Eastwick, Virgo, I encourage you to watch it. One, it is a star-studded cast. We have Jack Nicholson as the devil. We have Cher. We have Michelle Pfeiffer, the queen herself, and Susan Sarandon. And you are the Susan Sarandon of the end of October. In that movie, Susan Sarandon, and it's free, by the way, like everywhere. I think it's like free on YouTube right now. It's free everywhere. Go watch it. Susan Sarandon plays a music teacher, and she is such a perfectionist. She is so serious about her craft. She is also so uptight. It is surprising that her face isn't purple. This lady's wound so tight. And eventually, the devil does what the devil does. And she starts to loosen up. And she teaches a music class, like in elementary school. And there's this one scene in the movie, Virgo, where she's instructing the kids who are also really nervous. And they are also so uptight. Probably because she's kind of uptight. And she comes in and her hair is it's out of a bun and it's wild and it's loose and she's in these flowy clothing and she kicks off her shoes and she's having the kids play their music and she's going up to them and she's playing with them and she's play the trombone, tickle, 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 tickle. And it's this really cute scene where it's she just allows herself to have a lot of fun and just breathe and let loose a little, especially within her art or within her craft. So in that, Virgo, we have 1 week. This is a 1 week reading for the end of October. One, I want you to consider that maybe your clock is wound a little too tight right now. And I'm also wondering if it is making other people around you feel a little tight, feel a little tense. And I share that because we as people are sponges, right? We absorb everything from our environments, especially if you're sensitive. But that being said, we also project, we emit energy, we emit attitudes, we emit a force field, and what we put out in the world also affects people. So sometimes when we're wound a little too tight, when we're taking ourselves a little too seriously, that can also rub off on our kids. It can rub off on our partners, it can rub off on our coworkers, just like other people's energies and their attitudes rub off on us. And so again, on one hand, Virgo, for the last week of October, let's consider it's fucking spooky season. Maybe you're taking things a little bit too seriously. You're not giving life enough wiggle room. You're wound too tight. And maybe that's rubbing off on some people around you. It's making them feel a little tense as well, right? 2, let's also have a conversation and consider that maybe whatever it is that you want, because I'm thinking about Sarandon and music, right? Music is her life, it is her vocation, it is her passion, it's also how she makes money, it's all of these things, right? And I'm wondering if you have an art or a creative expression, if you have a business, if you have a job, if there's some area in your life that it means a lot to you, you've invested blood, sweat, and tears in it, to the point where now it has become this idol or this goal that you have that you've been trying to capture has now turned around and coveted you. And you need to interject more life, more fun, more play, maybe into your spiritual practice, maybe into your art or your creativity, maybe into your business, into your relationships, whatever it may be, Virgo. But there is a sense of when it comes to inspiration, the spirit of success, the spirit of blessings, it's it's fun, it's sparkly, it has a little something tasty to it. And so it just feels not only are we wound too tight, things are a little bland. And Taurus had some of this energy as well. Because honestly, all of the earth signs are feeling a little heavy. And I think that's in part why I felt guided to pull the animal spirit deck. Because one, just the animals in general, they always help me get down to the bare bones of what you're going through. And this teeny tiny little tarot deck is just, it's so cute. It's almost comically small. And so I think there's something about that. Like, part of the reason these decks are the decks that want to be chosen is because they are a little sillier, or there is something like strange and unusual about them, or they are a little bit like lighter in nature. So I want to say, Virgo, for the next week, let's also, like, what are you reading? What are you watching? What are you doing? Let's keep it light. Maybe you have like a spin instructor who's like a German war soldier. It's like, maybe try Pilates, like maybe go for a brisk walk. Maybe let's focus on some comedies. Are you watching stuff that's stressful, stuff that's really intense, right? I personally, just a little Lauren lore, I didn't know I listened to like so much like sad girl music until last year. Spotify did like their playlist roundup, you know how they do that, and Spotify is basically like, girl, are you okay? Because like all of my music was super depressing. I didn't know that. I had to make a playlist called Uppers that literally is just like happy music, because I didn't have any, because it's just because I'm a Pisces, you know? And so I'm like wondering, like, what does your Spotify playlist look like, Virgo? Are you listening to a lot of sad, sappy shit? Like, are you watching movies or TV, or you're reading books that are like horrifying or like stressful, or reinforcing a pessimistic attitude, or giving you more reasons to feel uptight? And like, I wonder, like, how often is the Four of Pentacles coming out for you right now, the Nine of Wands, these like really tense cards, right? Maybe we need more comedy. Maybe we need more cotton. When's the last time you just let yourself flow, you know? Like, I just feel like you need like to just take off perfection for like the last week of October and just like re-regulate, and I think it's gonna make you feel a lot better. So let's see what else wants to come out. The Elephant, and you know what, the Elephant's coming out in reverse, and more often than not, I don't choose to take reversals, especially in this deck, but the Elephant for me has always, if you've been here with me for a while, you know, elephants are reflective of the divine for me. And in particular, like the divine's ability to bless and to block, and particularly to guide, right? Think about an elephant and how it could just clear a pathway for you. It's in reverse. So I also want to I want to say, and I get the impression that there may be some intuitions coming in about, hey, Virgo, maybe take a break. Maybe the Hermit card is coming out a lot for you right now, and you're like, oh, I'm a Virgo, that's my signifier. It might actually be telling you to like take some time off. I know the ability to do that, right, it's varied across the board. But with the Elephant coming out in reverse, it's just a feeling of like, maybe we're not totally tapped into our intuition right now. Maybe we're not really listening to our guidance because we're not sitting down long enough to receive it. The divine in some way may be guiding you to slow down, to relax. It's almost like, I want to say, it's like you're not a Taurus, like you're not a bull. Actually, you're not a Capricorn, you're not a sea goat. Like, you are not supposed to be like ramming through situations. You are not supposed to be held so tight. You're the maiden. That's your archetype. You are the maiden. What do maidens do? They let their hair loose. They read a fucking book, right? They wander through a field. They pick a daisy. They smell the rosette, right? They allow other authority figures to handle the responsibilities that like are not assigned to them. And so there also might be something here about like you assigning stressors to yourself that like don't exist, or putting the cart before the horse, or worrying about, you know, 12 years into the future when it's like you don't even know what you're having for dinner tonight. And so I almost want to say it's like the last week of October is a good time to like let God be God, let the universe be the universe, like trust that like you don't have to be the glue to hold it all together. The sky will not fall if Virgo like takes a week off perfection and you let yourself kind of like let your hair loose a bit for a minute. Because I think in that, it's also going to connect you with a more organic rhythm, which will make it easier for you to discern the guidance that's coming in, to listen to your intuition, to notice when it's even there. Because there's sort of a feeling of like, I'm not removing this blockage until you sit down and talk to me. Like, that's kind of what it is. What I feel from this Elephant card. But again, if you're so tight, it's like you can't hear. I also see the stingray at the bottom, and I see the zebra. So one, you might be be working too hard to fit in areas where you were actually meant to stand out, not to sound like a coffee mug. You also, with the Cobra here, you might be you're trying too hard at something. And I'm almost hearing like you're I don't like the word ruin, but like ruining the magic, because like the magic happens in those in between liminal spaces where we're not watching, where we're not controlling. The stingray for me also talks about emotional regulation and almost like emotional neutrality when we've settled ourselves. So it's like we're not being triggered, we're not going into extremes. I actually think you're burnt out and you need the last week of October to relax, to recalibrate, to reconnect to your spiritual source, to reconnect to your sense, just to take a breath, to like loosen the belt a little bit, especially before the holidays. Because in that, I almost like see you giggling. I almost like am projecting you like a week and a half, 2 weeks into the future, and they're saying November 8th. The earth signs are getting specific dates. Taurus had November 15th. You're coming through is the 8th. I see you sitting down on November 8th and just giggling and going, oh my God, I'm such a weirdo. Like, why was I doing that? Like, why was I making that so much harder than it had to be? Why was I being so intense about that? Like, whew. And then just, like having like kind of a bit of a giggle about that. But again, I think this is like a pattern of behavior, and it might be one of the, they're saying checkpoint, that there's a certain checkpoint like in a car when your oil light goes off that's like, hey, you got 6 miles, make it to a gas station. But it's almost like you're not noticing when that checkpoint arrives or when that check light goes on. So like you keep going without that refuel, and you just start getting more tense and more serious and more controlling and more tense and more fearful and more stressed, right? And so something, Virgo, for me as like a fully grown neurodivergent, probably undiagnosed autistic woman, something that I notice, and I talk about it with my partner a lot, is my body doesn't always alert me when like I'm hungry. Like I'll know I'm hungry when I'm nauseous because it's been so long since I've eaten, because my body just doesn't like cue me sometimes. Like, hey, you're hungry, girl, have a snack. Same thing with like water. My body won't be like, I'm thirsty. It'll be like later in the day and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so parched. I actually have like alarms set on my phone to remind me to drink water, because my body just doesn't give me the cue. So it feels like when you are taking on too much stress, when you're taking on too much responsibility, when you've lost perspective, when you need a break or when you need a breather, it's like a check light goes on or a checkpoint comes up, but it's like you don't notice it, or you're like your body's not alerting you to it, or again, you're stressed, so your intuition's not coming in clearly. You miss it, you keep going, right? And then again, tighter and more tense and more stress. And so part of maybe one of your homework assignments for the end of the month is also to figure out like where your checkpoint is, when that check light goes on. How far can you go? How much can you do before you actually need to take a break? That might be something that you want to like book a reading for, or pull out your own cards and sit down and like actually like figure out, okay, like what are my limits? When do I need to recharge? Let's see. Tiny deck. It's so funny to me how tiny this deck is. I actually love this deck too. There's a lot coming out. So the High Priestess is coming out. This Pisces energy, it's mutable just like you. Being able to sit in the in-between spaces. I was a bartender for a very, very long time. And one thing that my old boss used to say is that it's easy to be a good bartender when the bar is packed, right? When you got customers 3 deep and people are yelling out shots and drinks to you, and you're putting in orders and you're running the computer and you're in this perfect flow state and you're moving and grooving around all the other bartenders. It's easy to be a good bartender when you're 3 deep, when you're up to your neck. It's hard to be a good bartender when it's slow, when there's 2 people in the bar and you know they're only going to tip you $4 and you're going to have to sit there with them for like 3 hours and make small talk. That is when it is hard to be a good bartender. It's the ability to hold space when things are slow, when nothing's happening, when you know you're not making money, right? There's something in that here with this Piscean energy, because Pisces is also, it's Jupiterian, it's Neptunian, it's imaginative, it's creative. It has the ability to hold space and fill it up with potential, with fun, with whimsy, with, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, how about them Yankees, right? It's like a magical banter, right? The ability to hold space and fill it up with stuff that doesn't like weigh it down, right? Like we could fill it up with conversation, fill it up with potential, fill it up with a fun movie, fill it up with this, but stuff that doesn't have to become like these burdens or these anchors or these baggages that we then have to take with us later. It feels as though that's an area where you don't thrive. That you're good on one pillar and you're good on the other, but that like in between space is difficult for you to hold on to without starting to feel too tight and too tense. The last week of October gives you the ability to practice like loosening those reins and having a little fun. And what do we have? The Ace of Pentacles and the Wheel of Fortune. What can be inspired? What can come through? What surprises, pleasant surprises, can make their way to you unexpectedly when you are not watching that pot of water, right? What else do we have? We have the Four of Swords coming out in reverse, with the Seven of Swords coming out in reverse as well. Sometimes when the Seven of Swords comes out in reverse, in my practice, it can indicate like crimes or issues or stuff of the past, right? The Four of Swords in reverse can indicate like a lack of rest. And not just rest, but the Four of Swords also encourages us to reflect, to review, to consolidate our thoughts, our beliefs, and our experiences to make sense. It's a card of digestion. Looking back, you may realize, you know what? I'm noticing that every time I got really crazy and every time I got super stressed and every time stuff started going to shit, it also happened to be at a time where I wasn't taking any fucking breaks or digesting my emotions or digesting that experience I just had and making it make sense. Right? So if we look back, we might notice the pattern here. What do we have? The Five of Wands in reverse. How cute is this? You can't tell me this is not an adorable deck, because it absolutely is. And then what do we have here? And then we have the Knight of Swords in reverse. The lack of communication with self, with the body, and even being present. And you have to also slow down to be present in your practice. You have to slow down to be present with God. You have to slow down to be present with your heart, right? All of these things that helps you avoid conflict, avoid unnecessary struggle, right? It's like when the girls say, actually, drinking enough water and a small amount of exercise actually does help my mental health. It's like for you, Virgo, actually slowing down, being present in your practice, releasing a little bit of control actually does help you be more successful, helps you feel more safe, and lets you be more creative and create spaces for opportunity to come in with more ease, with more flow, with less struggle. I think this is a lesson that you have learned time and time again, and in the end of October, we are reviewing it once more. And I think it is the reflection of, oh, actually every time I go crazy, it's because it's been 4.5 weeks since you took a proper break. I understand. I think it's going to start sinking in and settling in now. And again, there's something about November 8th specifically, and what's that? Something savory, something tasty? December 14th and 15th are also, I see you giggling on November 8th. And then December 14th and 15th, there's a spirit of possibility there. So this actually might be kind of a sign of a changing of the tides for you in a really positive way. But this is what we have right now, Virgo. I hope this was helpful, supportive, funny for you. I love you so much. Your November monthly reading will be up on the Patreon on November 1st. If you are interested in daily horoscopes, daily oracle readings, prayer closets stuff, daily tarot tips, spreads, any of that, that will also be on Patreon. And if you're interested in connecting more with me through social media or through a personal reading, that information will be in the description box. Thank you, Virgo, for letting me read for you. You know you're my favorite, even when I have to poke at you and give you a little bit of tough love. So I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next time.